me know.
And we're live.
And we're live.
Yeah.
Hey,
Week
welcome
4.
to week 4. My gosh.
Revenge of the Fifth.
Welcome to Toque Tuesday at 2. I'm Todd Dammit Kearns. Todd Kearns. My friends call me Todd Dammit. You can call me Todd Dammit. With me as always, Corey Churko, right there. Make some noise from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Shania Twain Band. And of course, from Innisfail, Alberta, Shane Gallus on the drums right there. You're always in it looks like you're in Paisley Park or something all the time. Are you just kind of hiding out at Paisley Park since the beginning of the quarantine? As long as the janitor doesn't chase you out, you'll be fine.
We should mention that we're missing a fellow member here.
Oh, we are?
I noticed. What about you jerks?
You didn't know.
Oh,
Yeah, we are jerks.
I gotta say hi to Darren Steen though. Darren Steen, the guy behind the guy behind the guy, right there.
Darren Steen.
Yeah, you know it. We are missing Mr. Fitz today, and funny thing. After all that talk last week with Mr. Danko Jones about eye surgery, Mr. Fitz gets called in for eye surgery today. So. Not COVID.
You mean it's not COVID?
No.
Oh.
It's probably eye surgery, but then we'll see him in a couple weeks, and he'll look 20 years younger.
That's right.
Just miraculously. How's the eye surgery? No, it's actually nothing too serious. It's a cataract, which is fairly in and out, actually, for anybody who's actually ever been there. It's nothing fun about any of that stuff, but in reality, it's relatively painless, and the bounce back time is pretty fast. But it just so happened it landed right on Talk Tuesday, so there you go.
I don't believe there's ever such a thing as good eye surgery. I don't know.
No, exactly.
No.
And the cataract is due to his detached retina surgery, right? That's a side effect of it? Is that right?
The surgery, or the cataract, or the retinal surgery, causes all kinds of trauma on the eye, so it sort of creates this a cataract is essentially scarring of your lens just from years of abuse. You see it in older people, or often you see it in dogs. So it's actually fairly it's amazing how quick. I've had both mine done, believe it or not, and it's actually fairly really in and out really fast. So yeah, and painless.
It's a laser procedure?
I'm not entirely sure, because the crazy thing about it, here we go. You guys ready for this? No. They tape you down, essentially. You're in a thing, and there's a big light in your eye, and all you're seeing is light and stuff happening, and you're you don't know. And the next thing you know, you're out.
Done.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's no fun. But God bless, he'll be okay today. He's Brent, he's from Manitoba.
Yeah, exactly.
He's almost as tough as the guy. He's almost as tough as Saskatchewan.
Well, and speaking of tough people from Saskatchewan, we've got a good show today, and we've got a couple of guests that are going to join us in a few minutes. We're going to bring on Mr. John Donnelly, and everybody in Canada should and would recognize him from the band Queen City Kids. And we're going to be talking with him in the next couple of minutes. But first, we're going to go to some questions, because we've often found that during the show, we don't get enough time necessarily to answer some of the questions that people want to direct towards you guys. So we're just going to run through some that we got off the chat, and maybe you guys can address these however you see fit. Right off the top, somebody's saying, when are we going to play again, and are we coming to Southern Ontario? That pretty much speaks for itself, right? We're not sure in terms of where things are going to be, and in terms of where you play, it's pretty safe to say that that's really out of your hands, right? That has a lot to do with the booking agents and the promoters, and if these guys want to see you down in Southern Ontario, what do you suggest they do?
We actually had plans to be in Southern Ontario. Of course, those plans are constantly evolving and changing and up in the air. So we want nothing more than to be able to play every single corner of Canada, and Southern Ontario is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
So stand by on that, but that's definitely in the works. If anything, I keep telling everybody, nothing's canceled. It's all postponed. Right. So everything will happen. It's just a matter of when. And this wacky thing, and in the music business, can be the slowest thing to reopen, unfortunately. I
Absolutely.
think,
Another question comes from Loretta, and maybe we'll go to Shane with you on this one. Have you found yourself doing anything during quarantine that you have never thought you would do?
Hiding out in Prince's studio. That's something I never thought you'd do.
Things you can talk about.
Good point. Good point.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I kind of haven't played guitar much in the last 2 or 3 years. And since this has happened, I found myself actually starting to write again and pick up the guitar. So it's not something that I'd never done in the past, but it's kind of kicked my ass to kind of like, hey, man, let's, this is something I did for many years. Let's get back on the horse and start writing and playing again. So it's been really fun. So
I've been really enjoying all the clips that you've been posting of your solo stuff. How long ago was that stuff?
Well, that was like the stuff that I've been posting was from a DVD I released in like 2005.
Wow.
So it's like, long time ago, right?
That's amazing.
So when you say DVD, was that a solo project?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So if anybody out there right now wanted to find that, is there a way they could go get it?
Yeah, I mean, I have like 5 solo records out. I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow,
so,
amazing.
Insecurities, I guess. After seeing that stuff and listening to myself sing and write, I don't know. I guess I just kind of shied away from it for a long time, and then I'd go through cycles where, okay, I guess I want to start writing again, and then I'd write, and then I'd release another record. So I kind of went through 3 of those cycles, and I ended up with 3 solo records, and then like singer-songwriter type solo records, and then there was an instrumental record that I released a couple years ago.
That's so rad. It should be noted though, because on the stuff you've been posting in the DVD, it's like you're like Dave Grohl, like up front playing guitar and singing. Like it's not like you're behind the drum kit, Gilmour style with a. That's pretty rad.
Todd, we had that conversation, a couple times before, because I always admire frontmen and how they can just, step in front of a crowd, start talking at the drop of a hat.
Right.
And that was the most difficult thing for me was like, the banter between the songs, when I got a tune or I got to get another guitar and everyone's watching and they're just anticipating you doing something and capturing them and taking them for a ride. It's like, oh, I got to get water because I can't sing. My voice is dry and I'm thinking about all this stuff. So when I, guys,
and most of that was in Japan too, right?
Yeah, it was all Japan.
So actually, in Japan, the audiences are so much more like paying attention in a really heavy way than almost anywhere else.
When you finish a song, they clap, and then it's like,
they stare at you. Yeah,
it's hard. The dead air thing is
really, yeah.
You got to be on that.
But you kill it, dude. I got to get one of those DVDs.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know you're insecure about your voice, but I actually love your voice. It's very unique and it's strong, especially when you get up high, like when you really push it. So we need to get you out front for a song or two during our show.
Well,
not to mention
singers like you guys in the band. I don't know that it's necessary for me to.
Oh, come on.
That role.
The dance routine was amazing on that DVD. Just kidding.
Man, dude, the pants.
The spandex looked really good. I have to admit, they actually
like friggin' like Farmer John pants were like hanging down to my. It's just funny.
Well, it was the style at the time. Baggier pants.
That's great. So everybody can go check that out. That's fantastic. Next question coming to you, Corey. James actually wants to know another guitar question. He says, "What's your favorite solo to play out of all the songs Toque plays?"
Let's see. Well,
you got a member of Queen City Kids coming up. You might want to keep that in mind.
actually, Down Again is really fun. Originally on the Queen City Kids recording of it, it's a keyboard solo.
That's right.
And we did the keyboard solo on our version, but I also played in unison with it as well. And that's really fun to try and play keyboard arpeggiation, because there's lots of that in the keyboard solo. So that's really fun. I also really like the Harlequin solo in Thinking of You.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because it's just an epic melody, and it's long, but we could extend it even twice as long if you want my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I
and then of course, Never Enough is fun for me because it's something that I've crafted on my own, and
that's a great solo.
Like those.
Exactly. No, that's fantastic. Okay, and we'll go to Todd. I guess you can take this one as it's come up a number of times, but of course people are saying, are you working on other original music? I love Never Enough for you, and what can us fans do to get radio stations to play it?
We are working on new material. We've been working on, how many songs is it all together right now, gentlemen?
We have four new ones that we're currently recording.
4 new ones in the works, everything's sort of so organic to really know how and where everything goes from there. But it's mostly the fun of just doing it. As far as radio goes, I don't know. It's that's a whole other animal in this day and age. It always has been a whole other thing, really. Back in the day, I mean, in my Age of Electric days in the '90s and all that, there used to be a real great groundswell of audience support and lots of like independent type shows and whatnot that could support those kind of that kind of material. So, and you could really kind of build that sort of Kiss Army type mentality of having fans just harass radio stations until they finally play your music. But I mean, the internet has really created a whole other world where we're probably reaching so many people in terms of the online Spotify and things like that, and YouTube alone. I mean, but ultimately, radio really has always been king and remains king in and of itself. So that's the plan. I mean, we've only released 1 original song, so sky's the limit.
Right, absolutely. No, good answer. And of course, Megan from Winnipeg wants to know. Here's my question: Mike Myers talks about in his book the ability to spot a Canadian in the U.S. at 20 paces. Can you spot the Canadian in the U.S.?
No, not by.
People start talking.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm sitting in a restaurant, I was just thinking of this because whenever we talk about like, hey, the Queen City Kids have been playing together since the 7th grade. You kind of go, wait a second, they've been playing together since grade 7. That's speaking Canadian. So when you're sitting in a restaurant and you hear somebody like at the next table go, oh, excuse me, where's your washroom? And the waiter inevitably always goes like, what? So in the States, it's restroom, just slight changes.
Chesterfield.
I hear it all the time. Like if I'm, that's prairies, brother. That's prairies.
But I have to say that if there's a Canadian in the U.S. but they live in Canada still, it's easier to tell those because of their jacket. Usually, it's a lot bigger.
Right.
And there's a haircut to the women on the prairies that you just know, hey, that she's from the prairies in Canada.
Is that the I want to speak to your manager haircut or?
Yeah, and yes, exactly. And they also have the black. If they wear glasses, it's the black horn rim, not horn rim, but like the
very stylish glasses.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys can see the screen we're broadcasting on right now, but we've got some other Canadian isms up there that maybe a lot of people from around the world don't recognize. But
so let me just go through this. That's Mr. Dress Up right there, right?
Yeah,
Cup.
Yeah.
And the Friendly Giant.
Yeah.
And what's that dude? The big animal dude in the back.
Well, see, this was an Ontario thing. TV Ontario used to have a show called the Polka Dot Door. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's
Pokeroo,
Pokeroo.
something
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's never around the same time as the other guy in the show. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
The way they, cut back on the, and then of course we have the coffee crisp down in the bottom corner as well, which most people from the U.S. and anywhere outside of Canada may not recognize, but that's a staple up there.
What's another Canadianism is chocolate bar, which of course is probably English chocolate bar. In the States, it's a candy bar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which I've never.
These are the little things that I picked up.
And I've never really understood.
And
that.
Smarties in the U.S. are very different than Smarties in Canada. Smarties in Canada are like M&Ms.
Yeah.
A little bit. And then Smarties here in the U.S. are those candies that everyone hated getting at Halloween. They're the last little, in the little thing.
Yeah, the branded Halloween markings. Yeah. Exactly. Well, Smarties originated over in the UK and was brought to Canada because I know my grandmother, being a war bride, that was her favorite when she came to Canada, and she would always say it reminded her of at home. So, yeah, Smarties are a thing, but it's amazing how just the little changes that you make, even with what we call iced tea here. You drive 2 hours south and it's cold tea, right? So I think it's what do you call it? Sweet tea? Is that the thing?
Sweet tea. So. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
is Wig Wag chocolate bar still a thing?
Is that the one that's all multicolored? Looks like Neapolitan ice cream. Is that what I'm thinking?
It's like braided together. It's like braided together type thing.
Caramel covered with chocolate.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Kind of like, pull on.
Yeah, you can pull on it. Yeah.
Are they still around?
I don't know.
You know what? Let's ask the viewers. Make sure you go out and see if you can find a wigwag for Shane. Right. That actually sounds really adult.
And how about the wagon wheels? Is that what they're called?
Wagon.
Like those are chocolate and marshmallow and some kind of wafer.
Are those not at a U.S. thing?
Seems like.
I don't think I've ever seen them.
I've got a box of them. I've got kids here, so I've got a box of them in my pantry right now. I'll send you some wagon wheels.
Oh wow!
There you go.
Remember they were big, and then as time went on, they got smaller.
To all of us. It's just the way things go.
Yeah. Wagon wheel dysfunction.
Well, on that note, I think it's safe to say that we can finally bring in our guest of the first portion of the show. Any one of you guys want to do the introduction?
Go ahead, Todd.
Okay. This guy is a legend. He comes from the very same corner of the world where myself and Corey Churko come from, Saskatchewan. And the Queen City Kids was a massive influence. I just did the Eddie Trunk show the other day, and we were talking about our favorite Canadian bands. And Eddie was, Rush and Loverboy and, April Wine. And mine were super deep cuts, street hard bands like that. And the Queen City Kids, of course, would have to be in my top 5. They were either number 1 or number 2, I can't remember. But it's they've had that much influence on me. Growing up in a small town in Saskatchewan, they were the guys that were doing it, and they had records, and they were playing shows, and we just thought the world of them. And this guy is. Go ahead.
We've covered 2 of their songs. Right. One on the Giver album, and then one on the Never Enough album.
Dance.
Down Again. Yeah. And Dance. Exactly.
So that's how much we love them. And in fact, I think live we've always played often both songs in a set, no problem. So yeah, it's. So anyway, it's a really big deal to us to have this man here. He's the bass player. He's 1/4 of the greatest band in the whole wide world, Donnelly.
Wow. Yeah. Hello. Am I in there?
You're on.
Now you're live. You're on now, baby.
Well, can I just start by saying, you guys, we're just so tickled. We're so thrilled that you chose our songs to be on those records. And even beyond that, your versions of them are just unbelievable.
Oh,
like you just made them sound so much better. The inflections, really, the inflections.
Not possible.
When you sang it, Todd, the inflections were just perfect. You really did such a good job. And then Corey, you did that solo. You did the Down Again Mini Moog solo on guitar.
Yeah,
it's like
I got to recap the first couple of seconds for you there, just because I don't think I had your mic on. But we were just saying, I guess the fact that these guys have a couple of songs on there, and you were commenting on that. So continue on.
It's true. The version that you've done, not just of our songs. I mean, of course, I'm biased because I'm just so thrilled that you did our songs. But literally every single version that you've done of those songs has been fantastic. Like, just took that song, raised the bar. And just even the fact that you brought it back, and did that. I mean, I think, I know on behalf of all the guys in Queen City Kids, we're so appreciative. But it's not just our band, it's all the bands that you've covered, and every single one of them. I went to your gig at the Railway Club, and there was like, the audience was full of all the guys in the band.
Yeah.
You covered the songs, and we were all just like beaming,
And I think if people wanted to see that, there's some footage up on YouTube that if anybody wants to go check out. I think when you got up and did, I believe, Down Again and Dance, if I'm not mistaken. Both of those are up on YouTube. If you go to the Googler, you can find those, I'm sure.
I saw that this morning.
Did you?
What a great...
Yeah, that night. Okay. That night was Paul Dean from Loverboy, Ralph James from Harlequin, of course, Barry Connors from Toronto, and of course John from Queen City Kids. So it was a Stewart
Pat
from
Stewart from Bryan Adams.
Bryan
Yeah.
Adams
Odds.
and the Odds. Yeah, yeah.
Bernie
yeah.
Aubin wasn't Bernie
Bernie
there
Aubin
too?
from
Yeah,
Hedman.
that's right. Bernie was there. Yeah, that's right. I just want to really quickly want to point out that behind John on the left of your screen, you can see the old Kramer bass was the main bass he played during all those years, and I to me that's looking at, I don't know, Clapton's Black Strat or something.
Yeah, it's a funny guitar. I mean, they didn't make too many of them. I was thrilled to get it. And the one on the other side is John Larrabee. He did the incredible acoustics, and then he just sort of got into electrics for a while. That was one of his very first electric basses off the Larrabee line. So
also Canadian. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I was thrilled to meet him, and he gave me that one when he was just sort of breaking it in, and so I used that one on a few records.
So my question to you is, there's 4 strings on those basses, but you only used one note on
It's
Kids
true.
World.
Kids World.
Yes.
Tell us, because you told me the story when I saw you in Vegas right before I had to leave, and you told me the story of Kids World. And it was kind of
It was an argument.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
Well, the truth is, I grew up idolizing Spider. Spider from Street Art was just the most incredible bass player. And we had the same manager, so we were like brother bands. And I really watch him. And Spider, of course, is like, so he's busy, he's fast, he can play anything, anywhere. It's like the guy's amazing. And so I was trying to do that, and my guys were like, no, you can't do it. We got to bring it down to the root, man. And I was like, oh yeah, fuck you. One note. That's what you want. Listen, hold that thought. That's the groove. Sit right there, and then all the rest of it came in. So it was sort of a jam that went into an argument that evolved to,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so effective, though, because you literally, I think, remain on one note, like quarter note for like 4 minutes or whatever. It's like so effective and so literally like a giant middle finger to like the prog rock kind of side of people. Just like, I'm going to play this one note the whole song. And it's such a great song, too.
I remember as a 12-year-old when I saw you guys at the Center of the Arts in Regina, and I remember that exact song. I'm like, he's playing one note the whole song. And you owned it. You're like kicking your leg up. You just look so cool. And that was awesome.
That was my statement of they called me the quarter pounder.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know what I want to ask you, John, is in reading the bio, it said off the top before everything else, before you even got into like, obviously the Beatles and bands like that must have been, what an amazing time to have been a kid and going like, wow, all that stuff kind of coming at you. But apparently you were a champion bagpiper.
Well, I had a trophy that I kept for years.
So can you still play the bagpipes?
What bio did you get that from? My God, I don't remember seeing that one. But I haven't picked up a set of pipes for a long time. But it was. I have 9 brothers and sisters, so we grew up with lots of music. We started with piano lessons, and then Dad came home, and his friend had started a pipe band, and he said, "Hey, boys, who wants to play the bagpipes?" And I was like, "What? Why not? Let's go for it." So I played the bagpipes for a while, like through elementary school. But we got into grade 7, discovered rock and roll, and we formed the band. You mentioned it in 7th grade. It's true. We started in grade 7. The same 4 guys. We formed a little group. Within a month or so, we had a gig, and that led to a bunch of gigs. And they had a big talent contest, and we won it. And so then all of a sudden that meant we could get gigs other places. And so, we had to get our parents. And then I think it was even age 13 or age 14 that we actually got an agent. So we had an agent before we were old enough to drive. So, and in Saskatchewan in those days too, it was all the small towns hosted concerts.
Yeah.
So the kids would come in from 50 miles around to whichever town was hosting the concert that weekend. And then you'd go there, and it wasn't just a dance where they were at the back. A lot of times they'd come and sit right on the floor, right at the front, and it was a concert that they were paying attention. So you had to bring your show.
Right.
So we had smoke bombs and flash pots and
no way.
And we sort of broke a little bit of ground on the prairies of trying to bring a show and have costumes and have lights and a theatrical beginning and ending. And So
That's
it was
so
that was
awesome.
the era. But so we were raised more in the era of concerts, and also originals, right? We were able to actually play original songs. Of course, we were doing some covers, but we sort of discovered really early on that the cover songs were a hit for now, and then it's gone off the radio. People
Right.
want to hear it again. So we decided, well, if we learn a few classic songs, we learned Lucky Man, and we learned a couple others
Sure, yeah.
that didn't go, get stale dated. So that way we were able to spend all our rehearsal time writing. And so we really started writing at an early age. We played classics that didn't go out of date so we could focus on our originals.
And in the award you guys won, because that's the other thing I read in there, is that there was a trophy won at that Wascana Lake or whatever the hell it was. And it said that you guys passed that trophy around. Where's that trophy today?
Oh my God, it's here.
No way.
I just I'll pull it in.
Get it.
That's the first thing I read, was that the guys in the band would pass it back and forth for a month. You know what I mean? And I thought that was really funny. I'm like, the fact that you still have it from 1970.
Wow.
Too funny that Jeff Germain was just here for a visit, and we used to pass it around, and he had it for a few years. But it's the CKRM Parade of Stars, 1971.
Wow.
Fantastic.
It just came back into my house,
There you go. Wow, what
So-
perfect timing. Yeah.
That is too funny. Yeah, we used to fight over it.
I
Who
bet.
had the trophy for so long, right? That's
Shane
hilarious.
wanted to ask you about your
Yeah.
early days with Rush.
I had a question. Yeah, I was reading about when you guys, I think it was mid 70s, and you were touring with Rush. You were doing some shows, and they gave you some sound advice that sort of stuck.
Yeah, that was an incredible time too. So they were on the Fly By Night second album, but it was the first tour, and they did a show in Regina, and we got picked to be the opening act. It was at the Trinon Ballroom. Then that show sold out, so they added a second show the same day. So it was like a 7 o'clock show and a 9:30 show, and so we showed up, 16 years old, wide-eyed, had no idea, what it was really like behind the scenes. But we went in and did that first set, and of course, we gave it everything we could, and then they did their set. Then they had to clear the hall and reset the show for the next show. And the door opened, and in came Alex and Geddy, and they were super friendly. They said, "Wow, you guys are only 16? That set was awesome," and they were like friendly. And then of course they said, "Hey, what are you guys doing after? You know any girls? Come on, let's party." And so they arranged some girls and had a little party. Then when they came back on the next album was Precious Steel, they asked for us, and they said, "Hey, well, let's get that band." We were called Cambridge at the time, and they asked us to go out. So we got to do 6 shows with them in sort of small towns and like Melville, Saskatchewan.
Sure.
And the arena, they didn't put the boards down on the ice. They put a stage on the ice, but they put the plywood where the stage they said, "Oh no, the kids will all sit on the boards, or in the stands all around the stage." And of course, so Rush was mad, and they had to scramble to find plywood and make that happen. And
Well, if I remember correctly, because my dad was born in Melville, that and if there's ice in there, it had to have been still cold outside, and that arena is not insulated. I remember I could see my breath in that place. Was that what it was like?
That's exactly what it was like. It was like probably the coldest show ever. One more funny add-on to that story is that 40 years later, Rush was doing the R40 tour. And my kids, because of course, from that moment, I followed Rush forever and I loved them. And so my kids grew up with Rush, and so they learned to love Rush. So when they came to town, I was actually able to get tickets, and then it got bumped up to the meet and greet tickets. So we actually, I was able to take the boys back and stand in the line and do the little meet and greet thing, and Alex and Geddy came out. But I was able to say, "Hey, guys, I got to open for you at a show in Melville where they didn't put the boards down on the ice," and they were like, "Wow, we remember that show. That was unreal." And
Wow, awesome.
Wow.
it was a great moment.
Oh, it's okay. The kids can just sit on the boards.
Yeah.
They just assume everybody
it
in
was
Canada
validation
knows how to
that-
handle themselves on ice. That's all.
That's true. That's true.
So John, we'll circle back to some of those earlier days here, but we just got a question coming in from somebody who said, I remember seeing you open for Ozzy with Randy Rhoads in 1981.
Wow.
And obviously knowing what we know now and the fate of Randy Rhoads, can you touch a little bit on what that was like and what memories you have of that?
Yeah, that was amazing. We got to pick to be on the Blizzard of Oz tour with Ozzy when Randy Rhoads was there. So we started in Winnipeg and then carried on for a bunch of dates all through Ontario and the East. And the truth is, Randy was like the nicest guy. And the thing that still stands out, it stood out then, and I still really remember it, is his work ethic. Right, he had this incredible work ethic where in those days you do the show and then you drive overnight after the show to the next show. We always left after the gig, so it didn't matter to him if he drove 100 miles or if they drove 300 miles. He always wanted to get up and walk for an hour. He did an hour walk before. If he could walk to the arena, he would. If the arena was too far away, he would just do the walk and then get to the arena. He'd arrive at the arena, and they had a rehearsal room set up, and they had his Mesa Boogie, like a little practice amp, and then all his incredible guitars and a lot of charts. Everything, all his scales and everything were charted. And he would do 2 solid hours of da 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 da, scales and really precision work. Take a little break for Frisbee, back for another half hour. At 4 o'clock on the dot, sound check started. So then sound check would be like a half hour of solid rehearsal on stage. Then we would get to stage about 4:30. And Ozzy never did any sound checks, but it was always Randy and Rudy. They did them. We got ours. He'd do a little break, and then he would be back in to rehearse again from like 6:30 to 7:30. So he did, 2 hours solid, then an hour on stage, and then another hour and a bit in the rehearsal room. Never missed it. He just kept this incredible regimen of rehearsal. And then he was also the nicest guy, like sharing the information of, oh yeah, Japan, you need this, or whatever questions we had. And then also he's incredible with the Frisbee.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no skill set.
Crazy.
Yeah, but his talent, though, it was just such a shame, that we lost him so early, because he was so genuine and so dedicated, and his riffs are still just timeless,
They really are, yeah.
So take us back to a bunch of young kids from the prairies going from being 16 and winning a contest, recording some material. Actually, Mr. Fitz, that is unable to be with us here today, wanted to ask and wanted you to touch on recording downtown in Winnipeg. Any funny stories you can share with us there?
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess the one story there was, so we did our first album with a fella named Gene Martinek, and it was, he was a great producer. He produced the group Rough Trade, High School Confidential, and they had this great bass and drum sound. And we went, wow, it had very simple groove, and it was sort of our Kids World sound. And we said, that's the bottom end we want. Let's get him.
Totally.
Then when the record came out, the sound wasn't quite there. It got mastered and got compressed, and we weren't as satisfied with it as to call Gene back. So we thought, let's get somebody. We've been playing in arenas, we're calling it rink rock. We need to get that big sound onto the record. So they hired a fellow who worked with Kiss. He had just done a Kiss record named Rob Freeman. He hit #1 in the U.S. with the Go-Go's when we were working with them. So he was a qualified guy. Sure. And he said, what I want to do is record you guys in a big room and get that big sound. And so we're going to look for a building that we can have that natural reverb, right? And so we're like, get in the car, the 4 guys in the band and our manager and the producer, and we were driving to look at a couple spaces. And in Winnipeg, you're not allowed to turn right on a red light. What happened was we pulled up and we turned right on the red light. And so the police are right there, they stop us. And then Rob looks out the window and he says, big sign says building for rent right across the front of this building on Portage Avenue. So Rob, not thinking about the cops, gets out of the car and runs to the building. And, so all of a sudden he's like, up against the building. And that's how we found it, right? So,
and it was an old bank, right?
It was a bank, and it built in 1912, and it went from the floor 72 feet up to a glass dome roof.
Wow.
And then then maybe 30 years later, 40 years later, they put in an acoustic tile fake false. So when you walk in, it looked like, a jewelry store with a false ceiling. But when you open up the panels and looked above, it was this huge cavernous space. So what we did was we hung speakers up there and then put microphones all the way down to create natural reverb. So that was the sort of angle, was that we used all natural reverb on that record.
Yeah, that was so cool. And I remember reading something about it, that you actually hoisted the drums up into the room, or were they on the floor?
No, the drums were on the floor. We hoisted the speakers up.
Oh, you hoisted the speakers up.
And the microphone. So he hit the drums as we played the gig, but then they just recaptured the sound.
Oh, okay. I like my story better.
Yeah.
You're thinking the Tommy Lee sessions with the drums up in the air. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is that room still there?
Was
that room still there?
That was what I was about to say. Me and Fitz actually went in Winnipeg to try and find that bank, that building, and apparently the facade, the front is there, but the actual bank is gone. Is that right?
That's exactly. So the building was there for years, and it was vacant for quite a few years too. They put a comic store in there for a little bit, but the MTS Center then moved in across the street. So they got the big arena. It's directly across the street as our building. And then what they did was they put a big hotel and stuff behind it, but they kept the facade. So the facade is there, but it's
right.
An office building behind.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I can tell you from personal experience, the driving downtown Winnipeg has not gotten any better.
Well, the MTS Center itself.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
Hey, Darren, do you have a picture of the Queen City Kids' first record there?
I have a picture on cue that we were looking at, I guess, which would be a
I want to ask.
This is a young Queen City Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, put that one up first. So this is your band, John, in grade 7 then, I guess?
He probably can't see what we're looking at.
I can't see what it is.
Yeah, I've not seen the picture, so I'm not sure which one it is, but
it's the one from your website. It's the one where you guys are just kids. And
yeah. So that's grade 7. We had a fellow named Rocky Stewart that played with us for the very first couple of rehearsals, but he was just a good friend with the right name, Rocky.
Right,
yeah.
Rocky. Yes. It's so funny though. So that's really interesting to imagine. You must have so many interesting ideas on how a bunch of guys from the 7th grade managed to sort of. There's never a phase of the band where there's then we had that other guy playing guitar for a while. It's it's been the same lineup, even though I know the band. 50 years.
We had our 50th anniversary. So the first 13 years we were living the dream and did the 2 albums. Then life sort of got in the way. A bunch of things happened beyond our control, and we had to stop and take a break. So we all went our separate ways. We all moved to different cities. And then a couple years, that was in 83. In 86, we got asked to do a reunion show. Right. That became a reunion tour. And it was so good. All the fans were there. Our friends were there. We just locked right in. It was exactly like riding a bike. We had the exact groove. Jeff and I still had, telepathy about what we, and it was just too much fun. So we just sort of kept on doing shows after that point. So we didn't learn a new song for 30 years. We would just fly in and do the show, maybe do a quick little warm up the night before, but we just loved it so much. We love being together. I'm so fortunate to have, a band of brothers together for 50 years. And you guys know the feeling, it's just,
absolutely,
it's a great, great spirit.
Were you going to ask about the album cover, Corey?
Yeah. So
yes.
Tell us about this.
Who is that girl?
Well, she was a model.
This is your first album.
I remember.
She's wrapped in cellophane, and I remember.
Yeah.
It made me feel funny as a 12-year-old.
Makes me feel funny now.
Funny or fuzzy?
That was really just it. At the time, the album was going to be called Kids World.
Oh,
and
wow.
That was going to be the title of the album. And so on the back of the album, cover is supposed to be like the mental ward, and she's in there trying to break out, So that was the concept, was that you're trying to break free and break out of Kids World and get out. And so she was wrapped in saran wrap to break out. So it was a very intense search to find that model. We must have looked at like 40 or 50 different models to try and find who.
Was that just a bunch of young kids wanting to just look at all the girls as they came through, or were you trying to be selective?
Yeah, no, it was a professional photographer, who had agencies, and he was putting forward these models but this young girl had walked in and dropped off her resume. And so it was her first job. It was her first shoot. She put it on the desk. We saw it and went, that's her. That's,
And where was this? Where?
So it was in Toronto. So we got signed to Columbia Records, and they connected us with a photographer he did Street Hearts, Meanwhile Back in Paris album cover.
Oh, yeah.
And so Myron was able, So we got connected with him. We went to his studio, and he pulled out all these things. So we built that little set, and the idea was that we're looking in at her, and she's trying to break out. So there was a bit of a concept.
Maybe you could do the Phil Collins thing and remaster the albums and maybe get her back and see where she is now and get her to redo the front cover.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get her on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I wish I could remember her name. I'll have to look it up. But she when we played Maple Leaf Gardens with Ozzy Osbourne with the Blizzard Buzz Tour, and she came as my date to that show.
There you go.
Amazing. Wow, that's great.
That's funny. Yeah.
So why wasn't it named Kids World? Was there ever an official reason why they didn't use the album title?
I think it was just the label chose it. The label thought, let's just first album self-titled, trying to so it wasn't our choice.
Of course.
I don't remember it being our choice. Anyway.
Well, a girl wrapped in cellophane and naming it Kids World. You mean maybe there was a little bit of
That's pretty risky for the time,
mind you, you could get away with a lot more back then, I'm sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was, it was definitely, that was a great era,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We formed sort of before the splintering of the music splintering into all the different genres, So in the 60s, there was no different genres of glam or punk or whatever. It was all just new music, right? Absolutely. So we sort of were ahead of that curve. So when, after we'd been writing for 8 or 9 years, the label looked at us and said, well, where do you fit? We're not sure. Is it rock, or is it new wave, or is it punk, or is it, metal? And so they put us in a campaign called Music to Weld By.
Wow.
A mannequin, and they wrapped her in saran wrap, but they put a welding mask on her head.
Wow.
And that was the display in like Kelly's Records, when you went into the record store, right? To weld by it. We were like, oh, come on. What about our melodies? There's the songs are full of melodies. It's not all,
wow.
But anyway, they were trying to make it fit,
How did you guys decide who was going to be the singer when you were just, like in grade 7, that old? Like, was it obvious, or was there like, oh, I want to be the singer, or I want to sing this one, or?
Yeah, well, we had 3 singers initially with.
Oh, you did.
Well, I mean, for when we first started, Kevin was sort of had a strong voice, and Alex, we brought him in because he could also sing, but then I was also, writing songs and trying to sing. So we had 3 singers. Then once we started refining it, everybody, our manager looked at it and he said, let's do the 2-singer thing. We'll just focus on those 2 guys. They can do the harmonies. John, you sort of step back a little bit. If you want to sing a monotone E, that's fine, but we're making it about them, And I went, what? Come on. But so then, of course, it ended up skewing a lot more on Alex. Did most of the songs. Cal sang a few.
I was going to say, Alex is one of my all-time favorite singers. Like, totally. He's so not Regina when you think of what a Regina singer would sound like. Like, he sounds so universal, so, American or even British sometimes. Did he work at that, or was that just something like, what were his influences?
I'm not like, he had the same influence as us, really. We all, we love the Beatles perhaps more than Led Zeppelin. We're more on the melody side. Alex wrote incredible melodies and incredible, lyrics. Intricate guitar, and sometimes he was a little bit too outside. We had to soften it a little bit to actually make it work, for the band. But
Right. I remember
writer.
that I had to, when we redid Down Again, when Todd and I were recording the vocals for that, because the way that Alex sings it, it's not down again, it's down again. I'm down again, right? Because we were singing again, and it was like, no, that just doesn't sound right. But it's kind of ridiculous for us to say again, but then when we did, it sounded perfect, So
I think that's just a quirk, But
but I mean that's what's so awesome about it. It's just so rock and roll and throwing out the rules of proper pronunciation and all that stuff.
Totally. Yeah, we used to joke and call it down egan.
That sounds like a town in Saskatchewan. Down again, Saskatchewan.
Speaking of towns in Saskatchewan, we often like to think that we touch on all things Canada and Canadian, but viewers are tuning in from all over the world. We know that the band went through a bunch of different names in the early days. Can you explain to everybody watching how you settled on the name Queen City Kids, and of course, as we all know, what that reference is?
We were called Cambridge was the main name we had, and we when we were in high school, and I think at the time disco was sort of coming up. And we were shopping, trying to get a record deal, and one of the reps at the label thought that Cambridge could be a disco band, so they thought Cambridge wasn't the rock sound that we were, and so they were sort of pressing us to come up with another name, and so we were looking for what is the new name, and it was we went through finding a band name is hard. We went through all kinds of names. God, I can't remember some of the ones that we laughed at that were hilarious. But anyway, it was my father that suggested, you guys are the Queen City Rockers, And then Mike, our son, said, no, we were kids when we met. Why don't we be the Queen City Kids? And somebody went, hey, yeah, we were kids when we met. We're from Regina's the Queen City, and we were kids when we met. So really, that's where the name came from. But it was a combination of my dad and our soundman Mike that brought it home. But now we're the Queen City Old Farts, right? We're, as Queen City Kids, now we're like the old guys.
And then, of course, to everybody watching, we know that Regina, of course, is referenced as the Queen City, correct? So,
yes,
it is. Yeah.
So to anybody watching from abroad, the town, of course, Regina is the Queen City. So,
if you look at the back of any Canadian coin, it says DC Regina, right? Latin for regent. So Regina is officially the Queen City. Other people may claim it, but they aren't.
I love that we somehow found a way to pronounce it Regina though, and not Regina. That seems that's very Canadian.
The city that rhymes with fun. I mean,
that's the line, isn't it?
And then of course, after all those name changes, you also settled on a logo. How do you feel about all these years later, some bunch of young kids coming and starting a band and blatantly ripping off your logo? How do you take to that?
Two definitely stole your logo.
It's true.
I saw that lightning bolt. I went, "Hey, that looks familiar," but I love it.
You know what we did? We took the lightning bolt from you guys and the lines from Street Heart.
That's right.
Really? Wow.
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing.
The most Saskatchewan references ever.
We're still waiting to hear from your lawyers.
Yeah. Amazing.
Hey John, why don't you tell us what you're doing these days? Because you're actually quite busy and you have a very musical family.
I mean, professionally, I'm an event producer and booking shows. As you know, I've booked you guys, and really looking forward to doing that again. But I also have a musical project with my kids. My daughter Naomi is a children's entertainer, so I actually spent the weekend building a green screen studio in our. We got a little music studio in our backyard, so we've installed the green screen. Here's a children's project called the Rock and Robin Show, and so we've just finished our third album, and now we're shooting videos, and we've kind of become the Partridge Family in that, when we tour, it's me and my wife Joya and my son Terrence and daughter Naomi. We load up the trailer and we drive across the country, and we're doing shows in little theaters family entertainment shows. My older boy Jordan is a heavy metal guitarist, really fantastic. My son Terrence plays drums. You know, when the oldest one was young, my brother came and visited me, rocked him to sleep. He said, "Never be a musician." But somehow that didn't work. So we've all ended up with the musical family.
And home is Vancouver for you these days?
Yeah.
It has been for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, when the band broke up in '83, I came to Vancouver then. Having, traveled the country and played in every city across the country, I definitely recognize some of the attributes in Vancouver and that weather. And
one of my favorite places. Corey and I both lived in Vancouver for many years, yeah.
Bob Rock, who was looking for a bass player, the Paolas, and he's the one who asked me to come here. So I flew out to Vancouver to join the Paolas, but by the time I got here, they hired somebody else. So they just gave me a free ticket here, and I was here. So
that's hilarious. Wow. And Bob Rock went on to produce Metallica and Motley Crue for those listening. Yes.
Yes, he's on.
Yes. He worked on some other projects you might be aware of. Todd?
He did some Age of Electric. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to find somewhere to drop my
name. Well, yeah. I figured I'd give you the window there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, he was super nice guy. But by the time I landed, they'd hired A-Train, and they were sort of getting into reggae, and they really felt like he was the right guy, and so I didn't really get a chance to even jam or anything.
Hey, they're lost, John Donnelly. They're lost.
There you go.
Yeah, where are they now?
Yeah.
So, John, just to touch a little bit on what you said, as we get a ton of questions coming in from people all the time, when can we see you? What can you touch on that a little bit as an event producer now? How are things in your world with all of the COVID and everything going on? Can you offer any insight onto what you see happening in the next couple of months?
I mean, it's tough out there for sure. We tried to use the word postponed. I was queued up to have my biggest summer ever. I had about 20 different festivals and events that were lined up for our company and initially we thought we were just going to postpone them and try and move them into the fall. But as this thing kept going longer and longer, we've now realized that there's no events for us in the fall. I'm lucky. I'm now part of the MRG group, and it's a fantastic group of people. And they were completely committed to doing live music in 10 venues across the country, and supporting young groups and supporting live and helping us do these big festivals. And everything is on hold right now, so we're all just trying to get through this and figure out a way that we can get into a situation where people can trust that it's safe to come back to a show, with our kid show, we got to find environments where moms can trust that it's safe to bring their kids to see our show, or you can trust it to bring your girl and go see a band.
Totally. Yeah.
I saw something online, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, but people are talking about bringing back the old the drive-up cinema, kind of the drive-in, where people would actually sit in their cars and and watch live shows
and watch a band.
In Europe, that's happening. In Europe, that's a thing.
I just like to see how the rush seating aspect would work in that. That's the only thing, right? Because it would be like smash up derby.
Moshing would be like exactly. Yeah, I like it.
They use an FM frequency to put the audio to come onto your car stereo. So luckily car stereos are getting better.
All that work setting up only to stream it through a FM stereo.
Yeah. I did have somebody call me and say, "Hey, let's work on this. We want to do it. His band wants to play. They want to make it happen." So I'm actually looking at it right now and trying to see, well, is that a way to sort of, we have to bring people back in. We might have to do it slowly. We might have to start with that kind of thing.
You never know.
Or we've got to find a place where people can spread out on a blanket and have that 6 feet around them, figure out how to mark the floor and make that happen. But I don't see that happening this summer. And then you get into the fall, it's going to not be appropriate to be outdoors. So I think we're into next spring. I think we're waiting.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing what Sheldon's going to have to say when you bring him on and find out what the hockey guys are doing. But
I know,
they're talking about doing tournament without fans in the house. Just doing
Well, and that's the
pay-per-view.
thing. I mean, when you think of a lot of that revenue being from television and broadcast, it doesn't work the same way in music and without crowds. It's really not the same. I mean, you can't really with hockey. I think they just did a poll and they said 80% of the people are, let's just bring it on, watch it from home, and let the game go on. But yeah, I don't see that happening for music because.
To be fair, I played to empty audiences a bunch of times in my early days.
Yeah, you still do it. But,
you still do it.
Yeah.
I think the virtual concert is still a way. Doing something like this. I mean, I applaud you guys for doing this. It's a way to keep connected, and so we're going to have to do that. And I will reach out to Lyle and you guys to see if I can get you into one of our virtual shows this summer. So
that would be awesome.
We're looking at a way to do Canada Day. We can't let Canada Day go by.
I know.
Right.
And not have a way for everybody to celebrate about their communities. And so we're going to figure that out. So I'd love to reach out to you guys and see if there's a way to get a song from Toque.
Please do.
We'd love to.
Yeah.
Be our honor.
Of course, I can't bypass your agent because I know him personally. So.
You'll have to check schedules, though, because I don't know if you can see or not, but due to the fact that there's lack of gigs, both Corey and Todd are both auditioning for the lead role in Jesus Christ Superstar coming up this summer. So
I did have that same thought when I looked at you guys. I mean,
we might have a scheduling conflict there, but we'll see which one of them gets the part. So.
Exactly. If they want a really tall, pale Jesus, I got it.
Well, I mean, if you gotta go voice for voice with that Ted Neely role, I'm gonna have to give you the edge there, Todd. So.
Well, yeah, I know that Corey and I actually we know all that whole thing. Yeah, we know the whole. We should just do Jesus Christ Superstar. Toque does Jesus Christ Superstar.
The Christmas album.
We should.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus Toque Superstar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to be Mary. I get worried.
There's a musical in there.
Shane, you're
I
Judas.
like it. There's a new take. Judas.
Yeah. Where's your Judas?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, John. We just love you so much. We're just thrilled that you could make it. And like we say, it's like, it's funny because people, when we were originally talking about recording a Queen City Kid song, I was like, dude, let's just record both albums in their entirety. I was like, it was really hard to nail it down to just, I mean, obviously, hey, here's a question that I always wanted to ask you. Were you ever aware of Aerosmith doing a version of Dance?
I think there was some talk of that, right?
Yeah.
And there was a talk of a few people that were going to do it. Names are blanking from me right now. Female singer.
Sure.
That covered it, but I don't think that ever happened.
To be honest, I've had a friend of mine. I won't name his name because then we'll suddenly have him being chased down by people. But he was working for the band at one point, and he swears that 100% he at one point in Vancouver with one of the Bruce Fairbairn records there was at least an attempt at a version of Dance by the Queen City Kids, and I was like, really? Because of all the bands in the world that could have really taken that somewhere else, Aerosmith would have been very interesting to hear that.
Totally.
That version.
Totally.
With Steven's voice and all that would have been very interesting
for sure. Yeah.
Totally.
Now we have the Toque version, guys. We have
exactly.
The song is still alive. There's hope.
So John, we couldn't complete a Toque talk without getting some further insight on, of course, Toque. You had a chance, obviously, to listen to the original song that these guys did and offer any insight or any advice from,
That's
Don't quit your day job?
No. I mean, I think doing the covers, that was brilliant and a great way to get it there. But now you got Toque as an entity and people know it. So definitely come out with the full original album, and let's service it to rock radio and get those tours happening and keep that thing alive. It's critical. So, and I love the new song.
Thank you.
Can't wait for more. So yeah, keep, don't stop, boys. Just keep it coming.
That's the idea. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Me, I'm going to be like everybody else. I'm going to go back and like clean out the closets now. You know, everybody, I keep getting emails of people who are like going through closets and finding all this crazy stuff, you know, and getting fun emails. I'll share one silly little tidbit with you before I go, which is just way back in the day, I used to make T-shirts, you know, I handmade them.
Oh,
and
wow.
with the band, and one time I did a show and this girl liked my shirt and I took the shirt off my back and I gave it to her, right? Wow. And she kept it. So now years later, I ended up, her daughter ended up working for me at a show, and she found out, oh, you know, I'm with John Donnelly from Queen City Kids, and the mom was, wow, I know him. And she just emailed me or texted me a drawing that she did back when she was 19, you know. So It's funny how it's around, but people are digging out the closets right now and pulling out all this old stuff. So it's fun to remember it, you know.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
We love your T-shirt, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good T-shirt you're wearing.
See the one I'm wearing?
There you go.
You guys do the uniform. I thought I got to wear my uniform.
Styling.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. We love you. Take care.
So anybody watching, you know, go check out all the Queen City Kids stuff on all your favorite streaming services. Like to thank John Donnelly for being with us here today on Toque Talk. Anything else you guys care to wrap up with?
Don't let your meatloaf keep your stick on the ice.
All right, John, we'd like to thank you.
We love you, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you down the line for sure. Take care, man.
Bye, John.
Looks like I'm in trouble again. Looks like I'm in trouble again. I'm down again. Looks like I'm in trouble again. Looks like I'm in trouble again. I'm down again. I'm feeling down. My feet are solid on the ground. And if I try to get up again, I know I won't be up for long.
Okay, great. Go for it. Is John forced to hang out the entire time?
Not at all.
He doesn't have to be.
Okay, we're back. We're back. I'd like to again, you know, thank John for stopping by, and of course, never to be outdone. I think Todd, you want to introduce our next guest, considering there's a little bit of a closer tie there.
Yeah, we've never really met. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, this guy I have known his entire life.
Wow.
Since like not quite in utero, but pretty much. So I used to babysit him when he was tiny. Now he's a giant. But from Lanigan, Saskatchewan, Stanley Cup winning Chicago Blackhawk and a bunch of other teams. But of course now he's assistant coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheldon Brookbank. All right.
Thanks for being on, guys.
Of course,
You're the first hockey player that we've had on here.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Must be desperate.
No, that's
Because of course, everybody knows that Toque is a rock band, but you know we wear hockey jerseys on during our live shows. So hockey's as much part of our life as music is.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, Todd, that you had a cousin that was in the NHL. This is amazing. Not only that, but Sheldon's brother Wade, his older brother, was also he's a scout now for the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
But he was on like the Canucks and I lost track of all the teams he was
Carolina and Boston. Yeah, he's got around too.
He's a monster too. And then we actually have another cousin, Jeff Sanderson, who he's our cousin, second cousin, I think.
That must be where from his side of the family.
Yeah. Where's the party at? Who's having a party?
Yeah, what's going on?
That's John's mic. He left it on. Yeah, we got some music to weld by here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for him to go take a leak or something.
I was just on a show with a couple morons. Yeah, he's just talking in the background.
People can't hear that though, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a full-on party going on in
Yeah.
our ears for anybody watching.
That's funny.
But
Wait, I got it. Remove from call.
There we go. Yeah.
Now he's gone.
There you
There
go.
we go. Look how much more peaceful it is. Sheldon is not rocking the playoffs beard. Only Corey and I am. So
Yeah,
Yeah. What's up with
That's
that,
my
Sheldon?
thing.
That's the
It's
first thing
more
you have
of
to
a-
answer to.
I could do a playoff goatee. It was kind of my thing.
Right.
I didn't. I'm not like Todd. I didn't grow one in the last 3 days since he was at a live event on Facebook.
oh, hardly, dude. It's a whole long process. I don't really understand the total uncomfortable kind of like all the time. It's not. I was gonna say, what was the you won the Eddie Shore Award? When was that? That was Predators.
That was in the AHL, yeah. So it's like that was
AHL.
Nashville Predators farm team,
Right.
and it was like I was 26 years old. It was kind of like when I sort of put myself on the map a little bit, where because me and Wade were known a little bit as being knuckleheads,
Right.
game of hockey, and then I actually won an award that could show that I could score some goals too. So that kind of put me on the map a
Now
little
that
bit.
was for outstanding defenseman.
Yeah, for and it's voted by the players, so that's why it's even better because it's like the guys who hate you have to vote for you. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the crazy thing to me is, and what I always wonder in because all I know is music, and it's a whole other ball game of like, oh, we play a bunch of clubs, and maybe somebody likes us, and we build an audience. But with hockey or any sport, really, you guys, I mean, your father Murray, we all know, was an amazing hockey player too, and we grew up in a small town, and he was a star on out in that world. And of course, he raised 3 sons that all went on to play hockey and play in at least some semi-professional, and in you and in Wade's case, very professional. So what is the starting point? Like, I'm going to play hockey, and then when does it sort of switch up to like, this is like my life? You know
yeah,
what I mean?
well, I'm sure like anyone, like if you guys are from Canada, you know, when you're young, they put a stick in your hands. I was actually just had dinner with Patty and Jean, Todd's mom and dad, the other day, and they were telling me how Todd could care less about hockey. He didn't even know what I thought. He'd be out there. But anyways, you know, so you just start off like that, and then you start playing, and you realize that you either love it or you don't. And so I obviously loved it.
Yeah.
And then I was pretty good at it. I was never like the best player in the area my whole life until I eventually kind of got out of Canada and moved on. Then I started to get a little better. But I think it's just like same for you guys with the music. You develop the passion for it, and you just know that that's what you want to do, and you just believe that there's a way that you're going to make it work one way or another. So you just put all of your energy into that, and you just keep pushing forward every day. And that's kind of what we did, me and myself and my brother.
So Sheldon, is it
That's
true
so
what they say, and can you attest to this, that they say that, you know, all rock musicians want to be hockey players and all hockey players want to be rock musicians? Did that ever
Sure.
did that ever cross your mind?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I tried picking up the guitar. It was a little bit too much of a battle for me. I could play the AC/DC beat on the drum set. I had that
Sure.
going. I could handle
Yeah.
that, but
Well,
You
they
know,
made
we
a
go over,
career out of that.
we'd go to Todd. Yeah, exactly. We'd go to Todd's house in when we were young, and they had every musical instrument you could think of in the basement. And
That's right.
I would kind of look at it, and I'd be like, "This looks awesome." I'd try it, and then I'd be like, "But damn, they got some nice GI Joes down there." So I tried it. It just was like it just wasn't. Didn't come natural to me, I guess.
That's so funny. So
Yeah.
is in the process of like building your career, like as you're playing all the way up, when you first get to that very first NHL experience, is it as gnarly as it seems like it would be, or is it kind of like, I worked my ass off, I'm here, I step on the ice for that game? And what was your first NHL team? I'm sorry, I know all this, but it's
Yeah.
all blurry.
It was that year I got that award. I went up to Nashville for my
That's
first
right.
game. And
That's right.
yeah, at the time, like usually when you get called up when you're a young guy, you're playing at pretty much the top of your level, so your confidence is really high. You're feeling you
Right.
really believe in yourself, and you think like
Yeah.
I can do this. But there's still that mountain of that it's the NHL that you've watched on TV your whole life, and you're like, damn, can I do this? I don't know. These guys
Right.
are amazing, you know, like
Cameras everywhere, all that stuff.
cameras and 20 2,000. Now there's 20,000, and it's Crosby on the other side. And then I still remember picking the puck up my first shift behind the net, and I'm doing this. And then I'm like, I'm going to pass the puck to someone else. And I'm like, you take it. But it's just like, I'm sure for anyone, you have those little nerves, but you still know that it's not so far out of reality that you can't play at that level.
Yeah, because you full time working. Can't imagine.
Yeah, it is. Now, you actually played when they won the Stanley Cup in 2013, was it?
Yep.
I heard a story, correct me if I'm wrong, but something about someone's grandma drinking from it.
That's right, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I had to tee up Grandma Thompson with a little sip out of there. I thought it's Stanley Cup. Let's have a little swig out of this. She was, I don't know, in her 90s at that point.
Yeah.
She knew.
That's so awesome.
She didn't waste her opportunity.
You brought that cup to Lanigan, Saskatchewan for 24 hours or a day, or how did that work?
Yeah, they give you 24 hours. You pick it up in Saskatoon, and I stopped off at the University of Saskatchewan where I did all my summer training my whole career. So I just wanted to stay, go to my trainer and give a quick hello and a thank you. And then we stopped at Guernsey Bar. This classic, it's
Guernsey is a small town outside of Lanigan that all of us would go to when we were too young to get in the bar in Lanigan. But go ahead.
Stop in there. It's just a staple. It probably looks the same as when you were in there, Todd.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And we cruised the back roads for a bit, and
with the Stanley Cup, you're cruising the back roads, and it's just sitting in the back seat, or how does that work?
I rented one of those shuttle buses,
right,
like a sort of a limo bus type of thing, and then another van. So we just cruised around. We'd pull over and party on the side of the road, and we took it to the curling rink for a dance and a party, and the Cup guy had to go to Alberta or BC. I think he was going to Seabrook's place next, and so I was telling my buddies Operation Feed the Cup guy. Let's get this guy, get him going, let him stay out a little longer, get him a beer, whatever he needs. He smokes cigarettes, get him whatever he needs. Let's get an extra hour out of this guy. And then I remember by the time he got to BC, Seabrook texted me. He's like, "Oh, thanks a lot for the Cup guy. What the hell did you do to that guy?" We increased an extra hour out of him. Anyways.
So as many people might know for that story, because as a hockey player and a fan of hockey, you always read up and you hear the stories. The keeper of the cup didn't always have to stay with you 24/7, but ever since I believe it was 94 when they found it at the bottom of a swimming pool when the Rangers won. Was there any truth to that story?
No, it was that was the Penguins with Mario Lemieux. He threw it in the bottom.
Oh,
okay.
What happened?
It was at Mario Lemieux's house, the party, and someone threw it in the pool. And they looked right at the Cup guy and just said, "Yep," and they threw it in there.
Well, wasn't there something at a Def Leppard concert where it got hoisted up on stage and Joel Elliott hoisted it over his head and then put it down upside down on the stage?
I don't know. I didn't know. Maybe I didn't see that one.
He's English.
Yeah.
We have to give him a.
Yeah.
It resembled the cricket trophy.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I didn't.
But our grandmother came to Lanigan that day and drank out of the cup. Is that how that worked?
Yep, she did. She made her way out there. Everyone came out there, and I just said, "All right, let's spill some champagne in this thing, and let's go."
Yeah, our grandmother was the best. God love her. She's gone now, but I'm so glad she got to experience that. I always say, because as Brent Fitz is always very, very humored by the idea that when you go to Lanigan, Saskatchewan, no one gives a shit about Todd Kearns because there's Brookbank Brothers all on the big billboards and stuff. It's like everybody's like, "Oh my God, they don't care about Todd Kearns."
And that's why we're just finding out about you now, because Todd's kept it a secret to the world.
People know. They just don't.
It's kind of weird how
recognition out there.
Oh yeah,
the music people know for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I don't feel that bad about it.
So how does it feel to transition from a player now into guys that you played with and now being a member of the coaching staff? Is that something that is just an easy transition, or how do you go from being one of the guys to one of the guys behind the bench? How does that feel for you?
Back in the whip. Well, first of all, playing is way more fun than coaching. I'll tell you that. But
Yeah.
go in and play the game and go home. But no, it's been fine. You know, I had a pretty good relationship with these guys, so that helped in that sense. You could be, you know, there's that honesty and that trust you have. But it is tough, you know, sometimes, and you have to really go at a guy, or you have to battle over something. You know, it's like one of your friends, one of your former teammates, and
Wow.
you know, you might have to go at it once in a while over something, and it's like a pretty heated game sometimes. And you know, in the heat of the moment, everyone's adrenaline's pumping, so there's always that. But I feel like it's we still have good relationships, and I'm really close to those guys that I played with, so I feel like it does help.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing to be a part of such a, like, I mean, you know, Chicago, Original Six. I mean, it's like such a, like, like, you got to take a step back once in a while and realize how heavy that is. I'm sure, be subjective as you are, that's such a crazy thing to imagine. If you would have, you know, told yourself at 12 years old, this is what you're going to be doing, you would have been like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So,
Like, no chance. Yeah. I'll be
yeah.
Pirates.
Yeah. Hey, Lanigan Pirates. Are the Lanigan Pirates still a thing?
I brought this for you. I saw it down on my bar. I don't know if you can
There
see it.
you go. The Lanigan Pirates. That's our hockey team back in our hometown. Love it.
Did you
I
play?
thought
Fantastic.
better in the NHL.
I brought this for you. Saskatchewan Roughriders.
So
Yeah, there's
What's that, Shane?
No, I was going to say, did Todd play on that team?
The Lanigan Pirates. That's an old timers team, isn't it? Or how does
yeah,
that work?
like it's senior, so when you
Oh.
still have a little bit to offer, you know.
Terry
still-
Bricksaw, guys like that.
At what point, though, Todd? I know you did play some. At what point did you quit? Pee-wee or
Well,
time night or something?
it was like Pee-wees, I think. You know, I can't remember the age groups, but you know, as soon as I picked up a guitar, I was also into, you know, drawing and painting, and you know, anything else that I was doing. The second I picked up a guitar, it all just kind of went away. It was just one of those things. But how old were you, Shane,
When I quit or when I started?
when you quit?
Well, I remember the day
Well, we all
playing.
started at birth, because that's
Yeah.
you know, that was the law. Yeah.
I was 3. I think Dad built a rink in the backyard. But I remember, I think I was like, I got on the traveling team,
Yeah.
like Dynamite Bees or something, or Pee-wee B, I guess. And I was already playing drums at that point. And I remember, you know, I was on the traveling team. I thought I was really good, but I was really small, you know, and I didn't have that killer instinct.
No.
I remember we were at home, but it was a playoff game maybe, and I was skating down the ice really fast, head down, and this guy that was like, you know, blocked me so hard that I knocked out unconscious.
Wow.
After that game, my dad comes back, you know, back into the dressing room. He's like yelling at me, Jesus, why are you skating here with your head down? I knew, you know, I have way more fun on the drums than
Yeah.
and I just knew, right? I mean, I loved hockey so much in those days, but you
we
get to
all-
the point where I just realized, you know, I can't hang with these guys, man. I didn't have the killer. I just didn't have it, you know?
Me neither. I was telling a story not that long ago how I remember being a kid and looking around at the audience and seeing parents like, quit figure skating out and taking it really seriously. And I remember just going like, man, this seems really, really intense for a very mellow, like, musician guy. Didn't you have like some?
You should
Oh, I
see what
can
it's like
imagine.
now.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Really?
Well, so didn't you have like some crazy amount of penalty points at one point? Penalty minutes? I'm sorry.
I mean, I did, yeah. But
Yeah. Yeah.
got in my
But
first
that-
fight, I was like 12 and playing hockey. But no, it's like nowadays it's crazy. Like these 5-year-olds are going right to the NHL. It seems like people are just
Yeah.
eat your quinoa, drink your green
Kale.
veggie drink,
Sure. Yeah. Crazy,
do all
right?
this extra. If you don't, you're never gonna make it. And I'm like, can we just have some fun? You can't even go to the water slides at the hotel anymore because it's too serious.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
And that was half the reason I played when I was young. If you go to a tournament and you go and stay at the Travelodge, you get to ride the water slides. And go,
Exactly.
Exactly.
you know? So
But is it like, you know, is it anything like wrestling in the sense that obviously the fighting is real? We know that. But are you able to kind of like walk away from a game and after being in a physical altercation with this guy or that guy, are you still like able to kind of go, hey, dude, if you ever see him? Or is it actually like, sometimes I'm assuming that sometimes it's pretty real. Like,
yeah, it's always real. There's certain guys that you have much more respect for.
Sure.
And there's certain guys that you would step on their throat if you had a chance. And you would,
Name some names. Name some names.
Name names. No,
name names. Jeez, I don't know. I mean, it was tough. Yeah, guys, I know I met a lot of the guys after, but like playing at the time, there Jordan Tutu was a guy you're just like, this guy, I would love to take him out, but I ended up playing with him, and he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But and like Steve Ott was another guy I just wanted to kill him all the time, and then it's same thing. You meet them and they're fine, they're good guys. But
of course, yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely real. There's a lot of hatred, and some guys you hate a lot more than others. Some guys, they're doing the same thing as you. They're just doing what they're getting paid to do. So
of course, yeah.
So we all know the Blackhawks, in particular, a bunch of Canadians, in particular, a couple of Winnipeg boys. We're actually broadcasting from about 2 blocks where Jonathan Toews grew up, and of course right beside his community center here. What does it feel like to play with, and of course now coach with a bunch of Canadian kids that do you feel any type of camaraderie there, or how do you feel with? Does that bring you a little closer to home?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially the Western Canadians and the Ontario guys, we get along really good. Taves, I think, really knows like what it's like Western Canadians are all about. I don't know if you remember that video a few years ago, probably 7 years ago, about those guys going out for a rip in their truck.
Yeah, going out for a rip. Yeah.
Yeah, he like pulled me back. He's like, Brookie, he called me, hey, you'll love this. Come, this is probably like your buddies in Saskatchewan. I'm like,
yeah.
Go for a rip there, bud? Yeah, so like you totally know, you're a little more on the same level of what everyone's kind of, how they grew up and what they're into. So, you need the Western Canadians is usually, I still think, is what helps push you over the edge in the playoffs. They got a little bit more of that edge. And, sort of Canadians in general, I'm not discriminating against any other place. That the U.S. has that too, and it's coming more. But I feel like we were just a little more willing to dive in front of a bullet to win the cup, just because that's how we're brought up.
Absolutely. And how do you find, what do you miss most about Canada now? You've been living in the U.S. for how long now?
I mean, I started playing down here in 2001, and I'd go back in the summers, but then I kind of moved down here full time probably in 2009 or 10.
Sure.
I stayed down full time, but I mean, I've been here for like 20 years, and I mean, there's a lot. I love, obviously, the people is where you start in Canada, and just
especially in our part of Canada. Yeah, the prairies is a different animal too. Yeah.
And I love the morning, that early morning in Canada when there's like nobody out and the sun's out and there's the dew on the grass, and like it's just it's really quiet and the birds are chirping. I miss that. The late nights with the sun up and then that early morning.
Are both your kids, or you got three kids now? How many you got?
I have 3. So I have 2 boys and then I have a girl now. So.
Are they all born in the States?
They're all born in the same hospital in Chicago, so they're Americans, and I tease them a little bit that they're not tough enough or no. They don't like that too much, but
I bet.
Chicago's a great city. The Midwest, U.S. is amazing.
It's amazing. It actually has amazing music from Chicago as well.
For sure. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we talked to John in the first hour, and we touched on his thoughts being obviously a musician and, working as an event producer. And with everything going on now, we were talking about live events and where we see them going, obviously, with everything going on in the world today. From a sports perspective, and of course, I'm sure everybody would want to know, and I'm not suggesting that you have all the answers, but can you offer any insight, or do you see anything happening in the next little while?
I don't think it's going to tomorrow, but I really think the NHL specifically, they want to get this thing finished. There's too much riding on it with all the trades and all the TV contracts and all this. Like,
sure,
they're going to figure out a way to finish this season one way or another. So I think it'll be. Oh,
really?
Yeah, you'll hear
so they would finish the season and not just start over with the next season.
I think they would finish this season out. They would just try and do a quick 2-week training camp or something to get everyone back up to speed. I mean, our team, we have 12 games left. We're not in a great playoff spot. Like, there's a chance, but not a very good chance. So you play that out, and then they'll probably do the playoffs in like July, August, and then I think they'll push the season back starting next year is what I think. Like, start it in December or something.
Well, they could practice social distancing by having the Olympic size rink.
Yeah. No body contact.
Yeah, exactly.
No contact. You have to be at least 6 feet away from the guy you pass the puck to.
Just ring at rules, yeah.
That sounds like the kind of hockey I would have been good at. I think I've been okay at that.
There's still guys like that out there, believe me.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Don't want to get into the corners, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Hey,
That's amazing.
You guys got to watch this show called, and I think you already did, Todd. It's A Secret Love. And it's about this seems like it's totally off topic, but it's not. A lesbian couple from Moose Jaw, born in the 20s or 30s or whenever.
Yeah, a long time.
And had to keep their whole relationship secret. But the one of them in that couple was the back catcher from A League of Their Own.
The movie,
right?
yeah.
The movie.
The movie was about them, yeah.
Right.
About them, okay.
And in all the footage that they were showing, they were actually hockey players way back in the 30s, which, growing up, it was always like ringette. Girls didn't play hockey, they played ringette. But these girls, these women were playing hockey way back in the 30s. It was amazing to see that. So check it out. It's called Secret Love.
Nice.
Well, I mean, we as Canadians, everybody here knew how to skate the second they could stand. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really remember. I remember, like, because my brothers are younger than me, but my youngest brother's like 6 years younger than me. So I remember witnessing him. You're gonna put him on skates already? It's like kind of like yoink and just push him out. And that's just the way it was in Canada. I'm assuming it's like that now.
Actually, just like Sheldon was saying, I think it's even worse now, because if you put somebody on skates at 6, it's already too late.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they've got people scouting 5-year-olds now. It's
Exactly. It's insane.
That's so crazy.
It was so
Sucking
gnarly.
the fun right out of it.
Skating into the corner, and and back in those days, it wasn't plexiglass in the rinks. It was like that heavy duty gauge mesh, right?
In wire.
Yeah. And I'd skate in there, and out of the corner of my eye, I'd see my dad. I'm like, oh shit. And I'd see my dad. He'd be following me along the boards. He's like, Jesus, kid, Jesus Christ. He's like full on Don Cherry. It was like I was more afraid of seeing my dad after the freaking buzzer went and going into the dressing room. It's like, oh, here's dad again. And he'd be in there where the coach was yelling at me. I mean, God bless my dad. I love it, but I think that traumatized me actually, because it just like, and then the fighting, he was really pro. Like, you're small. You gotta like show him you can fight.
Yeah.
Which I did end up having to punch some kid, which I still have trauma over.
Well, that's the thing, though, that they traumatize. I mean, you get traumatized into it. It depends on where it motivates you to be like, I'm out, or like guys like Sheldon who are probably like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Luckily for you, Sheldon,
he could handle himself. He was
Sheldon.
Big.
Were you always tall? Like I don't remember, because you were always smaller
I wasn't.
than me.
No, I wasn't. I was very average size, but it was basically I had the big brothers beating the hell out of me all the time.
Yeah.
But like, this guy's a monster.
Yeah.
I feel like I could survive him. I'll survive you too. So.
But do you think that helped you moving forward into your career? Obviously, it gave you.
Yeah. It's as caveman as it is. It sort of helped push me over the edge, because a lot of people are at the same talent level, and then you have a little bit more of that kind of I'll take your eye out mentality, and that's what they're always looking for.
Right.
So what kind of a mind game is it for you when you know that one of your roles out there is to be an enforcer? Is that a scary kind of thing? Like, I'd rather not do that. I'd rather just play the game. Or like, for people that don't know, because lots of people all over the world don't know what hockey's all about, but there is a role in all hockey teams where there's enforcers that are a little more physical than other players.
Or a lot more physical.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily I was a little more in like the middleweight-ish category, so I didn't have it as bad as the big heavyweights. But it was like when you're young, you kind of just feel like you love it and you just want to take on everybody. And I just was like, you're mad at the world, or not really mad at the world, but you're like a hater kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want to get everybody and be an asshole out there all the time. You take a nap on the game day and you sleep for 2 or 3 hours, you sleep like a baby. And then as you get older, you start to maybe not love it as much, but it's still expected of you. And
Right.
now your pregame nap, you're sitting there thinking about this guy on the other team. We're like, okay, this guy's like 6'4", big guy. He's ready to kill me. 22-year-old. All right. Okay, let's get
So to touch on that, because we've had a couple of questions coming in, and of course, Canadians love hockey. They love the aggressive nature. Was there any players in particular that you can remember where you're like, okay, I'm going to have to go out here, and I'm not really looking forward to this?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically every time you played a team, you look at the roster. All right, so there's this guy. Okay? So you got him, and then you got him. I remember like one of my first years pro, the tough guy on our team came up and was like, there's two names in there, Joey Titarenko, he was from Saskatchewan, tough guy, and then Rocky Thompson was this other tough native guy from Alberta, and he's like, all right, I'll take Titarenko tonight. You got Thompson? And I was like, Rocky Thompson? And I was like, got him. So I went out there and I just did it. I didn't really think about it, but it was like, you just size each other up. And it's not like that as much anymore, but if you're someone that has that you can do that, it's kind of something you just feel like you owe it to the team to help. Like someone runs over one of you guys and you're like, well, I'm not going to let that happen to you guys. So I'll get in there. Let's go. Let's get this done.
What is the training like when you're an enforcer? Is there ever any sort of, does anybody actually like the fighting aspect? Is that something in your training that you're supposed to like know how to fight too? Or is it just something that you kind of like?
Some guys do. I took boxing a couple summers and it helped me punch for sure. But honestly, my training came in the basement of 32 Foley Crescent. And it would be like, well, even at your guys' house, you weren't there, but Ryan would put the pillows on his hand and we'd play hockey fights for about an hour in the basement. And the pillow was always slipped off, and you had these razor knuckles that he'd just tag you on all the time. But I would leave, like my parents would leave to go watch our oldest brother play hockey, and the middle one in our family, Wade, who's the biggest guy of us all, he'd literally beg me to play hockey fights. Like, you want to play hockey fights? And I'd be like, no. He's like, come on, I'll go on my knees. He's like, I'll go on my knees. And I'm like, no. He's like, you can wear a helmet with a mask. I'm like, okay, fine, let's go.
That was my brother. He would always put a hockey helmet on me with a mask, and he'd get these boxing gloves and just hammer me.
Yeah, just go at it.
Yeah. Senseless.
Jeez, Louise.
And they'd be like, check out this new move. Like, check out this new move I learned. You're like, watch this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then by the time I came to do it, I was like, oh, this guy doesn't know the other guy I'm fighting has no idea what's going on right now. And then I just, take care of him. So
take care of him. Yeah, but that's the funniest thing. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you ever think that hockey will move away from the hits and the fighting? Because when you watch an all-star game, right, there's no fighting, no hits. Everybody's just playing for skill. There's more skill. There's more goals involved. Mm-hmm. To me, that's more satisfying for me to see the finesse of hockey rather than, the brawn of it. So, am I crazy in saying that? Or
yes,
you're
me crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've spent way too much time down in LA.
But also knowing the health implications of getting all those hits, all the concussion reports that are coming out, and all that kind of stuff.
No, it's slowing down for sure. It's not, and a lot of it was meaningless. A lot of it did have an effect in the game. It's still going to be like sort of a game of intimidation when it comes down to when the chips are down. It's like you might not be fighting, but you could still go after the top players. And we were playing a game I think last year, and they started going after Patrick Kane on our team, and we didn't really have anyone to deal with it. And I was like, we're screwed here, guys. Like, they're just going to run us out of the building if they want. And luckily, I think they stopped doing it, but I'm like, I don't know why they stopped, because like we were on the ropes. They just go after your top guy, and there's nothing you can do about it. Then he gets rattled. So it's still going to be there a bit. And I agree, you have to be careful with the head injuries and stuff. But I mean, I still like seeing a good old-fashioned fight. Gets me down.
The physicality of it is great. It's the dirty stuff that I guess you could do without. But I mean, again, that's what's going to happen. Like you said, when you don't have somebody out there that's going to protect your top guys, there's always going to be somebody looking to take a run at them to try to sway the advantage. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that must make you want to strap on the skates and get back out there half the time. Like, I'll do it.
There's not that often where I want to do that, but there has been a time or two where I thought, then I realized how bad a shape I'm in. I'd probably just pass out and get carried off on a stretcher. So I was like, nah, I better leave it to these young guys.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how taxing the game of hockey is. Just next level, like tough to do. You got to be in great shape.
Yeah, you do.
Buddy, keeping in shape now.
What's
Like,
up?
how are the hockey players stay in shape now with this long break? Because it's like Todd said, I mean, it's just so imperative every day you're regimented in training, cardio, and to keep that stuff is a lot of work.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the hard things about it too, and I've had to do it in my career, is when you really do need a trainer to like just draw it out for you. If you have to go in there and think of every exercise and think of the plan and think of the next thing, it's like you need someone just to say, do this, do that, do this. So it's basically a battle against yourself. Like no one's pushing you. I talked to some of our players on our team, and they were like ordering some gym equipment for their garage, and some of those guys ordered those Peloton bikes, you see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to do whatever you can. And I mean, they're young; they can stay in shape pretty easy. But it's just a battle against yourself in your own mind, probably every day. I had to do it in the lockout. We were locked out that year in 2012, 2013, and it was like every day you wake up, you're like, the season could start tomorrow. Like so, you're like, I gotta get in here and do this as hard as I can because it's
absolutely.
It's easy to just fall into that groove. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you could fade away, no problem, and be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll skip this one. And
so as a coach, is that something that you guys have the ability? Are you telling these guys, like even not being in the same room with them, like, hey, look, this is what we expect from you? Is this something, or are they just of that, we'll do it our way and we'll see you when we get back?
Yeah, they know what they have to do, but I mean, I checked in with some guys, specifically the defensemen, because that's who I coach, and I just was like, hey, just a heads up, I really think this season's going to start, so prepare yourself for it to start, however that is.
Right.
Get ready for this to start because it's going to happen. So they're not just thinking, oh, I'll be ready for October. It's like, no, you got to be ready for July. Right. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Hey, are there any vegans on your team?
Wow.
The Blackhawks you wouldn't believe it. I don't know how many vegans there are, but when I came here, they had everything. They had every type of health food you could think of.
Really?
Have it. They're really big into that. The nutritionists, they'll take your samples of your hair, of your sample of your stool to see what you're deficient in, and then be like, take these pills, drink this drink.
So there's a nutritional science to the game now, the component to the game.
Oh yeah.
Really I remember I was talking to Theron Fleury years ago, and he was on the Flames still, and he said the one food that they said you could eat anything you wanted, but the one food that was in the manual that you could not eat was Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're anti like dairy and stuff like that now. And
amazing.
I just remember coming here when I came to the Blackhawks, and we had like a Super Bowl party, and we didn't play for 2 days. We're in San Jose, and they had the Super Bowl on at this nice hotel. We come down, there's a spread, beer, chicken wings, nachos, and like we don't play for 2 days. And I'm like, oh, what a team! I like this team. I grab a couple beers, grab some sitting down,
just like home.
Let's give me good. Well, I was like drinking my drink, and I'm looking around, and they're like, geez, you're getting after it, hey? I'm like, so they're a little more concerned with their health, which maybe I should have been more, but they helped me a little bit, but they really take that serious.
It's like that new, I think it's I don't know if it's broadcasting in the U.S., but there's an insurance ad that runs here, and they're showing the new players versus the old school guys, and you see the new guys drinking their kale shakes and doing all this, and then they pan over to like Dougie Gilmore, and he's got that big plate of pasta, and he's like, "What, you guys don't carb load anymore?" And it's just like,
remember back in the day when guys would like light up in between, like they'd be on the bench smoking cigarettes, and like, you're like, dude.
They even had that when I first came in. I was playing my first preseason game in Nashville. I went to wipe my face off with a towel, and I was like, what the heck? Like, who is smoking cigarettes? Like, oh, it's Markov. He smokes between every period.
Oh, my God. Really? That was one in the same conversation with Theron Fleury. That's all. He was smoking when I was talking to him. I said, don't they care if you smoke on the Flames? He goes, They don't care what you do as long as your goals are up.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I guess that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you perform, as long as you get it done on the ice.
When was that, Corey? How long ago was that?
Well, that would have been in the whenever he was in the Flames. Was that the early '90s or?
90s.
Well, he won the
Yeah.
cup with the Flames in '89, did he not?
Yeah, so it would have been
I
around that
can't
time.
believe it was like that recent though that they could smoke still. Because I'm thinking Guy Lafleur in the freaking '70s, you know.
Yeah.
That would have still been like, what's his name? The last, like, no helmets still happening back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
What was his
Greg
name? The last
McTavish.
dude that didn't. McTavish, yeah. That was so crazy because I remember tuning in and being like, he's still not wearing it.
Yeah, he grandfathered that thing in because I mean everybody else, and he hung in there for a little while, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a fascinating thing in talking about like the actual fighting, sort of kind of going away a little bit or whatever. It's really fascinating to look back in recent history and see how much the game has changed in those cases as well. Like the helmets, especially the goalie masks, all that stuff has been so much more, like realized now. And especially when it comes to things like diet, it's no joke. I mean, these are actual, real deal athletes. I think no one really expects to, like, when they watch a hockey game, if they're not familiar with the game of hockey, when a fight breaks out, they must just be like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Why are they so mad at each other? What's going on?
Yeah.
Well, and you look at obviously the salaries and the amount of money these guys are worth to a team. I mean, that's a big loss. You have some of your guys. I mean, so protecting the players. I mean, given the fact that the NHL is now obviously on hold due to the pandemic, watching back some of the they do the reruns, the TSN games, from the even back to the mid '80s, and you look at the goalies and you're wondering, it looks like just wearing street hockey gear.
Yeah.
But you live through it and you don't realize it. But now you look at these guys and they're just, it's just massive, the amount of stuff they've got on them.
It's like, yeah, and Sheldon, you're a large cat, and I think that when you don't realize it until you're standing around other guys, that there are a lot of giants playing hockey, and like it's quite intimidating when they strap skates on and gear. It's got to be like there's a monolith, a giant building coming at you at 60.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the one time Chara was there, and him and Corey Perry were going after it, and I was on the Ducks with Perry, and they're getting after it, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, that's it. I'm going to go up. I'm going to sucker Chara right now. This is it. I got up to him. I looked at him, and I was like, no.
That guy's like,
Getting like, he's like, there. I'm like, yeah. No. I was so close to doing it, then I'm like, I bet.
That would have been the highlight of this whole interview if you would have went through with it right there.
Yeah, I wish I would have. I've fought some big guys, but in that moment, I totally wimped out, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you, dude.
exactly.
It's not uncommon now for goalies to be like 6'5", 6'6", right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, they're all huge. You can't see anything on goalie when you go to shoot.
Amazing.
There's no room there. Nothing there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Are they going to do don't they talk about like raising the nets in basketball because humans are getting bigger?
Yeah, they always talk about that. They're always trying to make the goalie equipment smaller.
I was going to say, or why don't they is there any talk about making the nets wider, taller
Yeah,
perhaps?
I think there was, or else they're saying make the posts smaller, so that just gives you a little more space. But that's not really a big issue right now because there's been enough goals lately. They changed all the other rules.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
The hooking and holding and all that instead.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to be like living in Las Vegas, watching hockey just overtake this town has been fascinating as a Canadian. It really kind of hit me that first season they were in the playoffs. And I remember going just to my local grocery store, and every single person was wearing that Knights jersey, that Knights logo, all the cars. And it was really fascinating to see it go from being, because where we grew up, you don't have to seek out hockey. It's everywhere. One time me and Fitz went to, we were recording in Los Angeles, and I thought, let's go, the Kings were in the playoffs, so we just thought, let's just go to a local sports bar. They'll be playing a game. We'll just watch the game. And we walk into the sports bar, and it had 100 TVs, and it was like soccer, badminton, anything you could imagine except hockey. And I'm like, the Kings are in the playoffs, and you guys don't have. And the guy goes, oh yeah, and he kind of turns on one way over in a corner, and it's just like literally me and Fitz. But it's amazing being in a town like this where there are kids who, a few years ago never considered strapping on ice skates, and now there's going to be kids coming from places like Las Vegas who, like, in 20 years it's going to be like this kid from Las Vegas, Nevada, because that's how far-reaching this game is. And it's really, in a lot of ways, it's been really exciting watching it happen in this town, that people got this fever of, like, this game that we grew up with for as long as we can remember is, like, now everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating to watch that happen.
Crazy. It's sort of like the Gretzky effect had on California, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
100%.
But Vegas puts on a show. That my first time was this year, actually going there, and those ice dancers in warm up, I was just like, what the? We're in Vegas,
crazy.
baby.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But I mean, and that's the thing, is I keep laughing because I go, now wait till this person who's first. I've been going to, like, I've seen 5 games in Vegas, and then they'll go to anywhere else, Boston, wherever, and they'll be like, what the hell? Where are the dancers? Where's
What is this? Yeah.
You're like, no, this is a hockey game. This is, I appreciate it because, in Vegas it has to be kind of like that. But it's got to be amazing being in, because as Canadians you always forget that places like Detroit, New York, Boston, Chicago, those are hockey towns. And when you meet somebody with a really thick Boston accent and you say, I'm from Canada, they immediately want to talk about hockey. It's like, it's such an interesting thing. But
now,
they're big markets.
Now, being involved in like you said, obviously a major market in the U.S., do you still see that hockey takes a backseat to a lot of other sports, or is it still as big as it looks? I mean, obviously being in Canada, we don't really have much else. I mean, being from Winnipeg, we've got the Bombers and we've got some other stuff, but I mean, the Jets are where it's at. But you go obviously down to the U.S., and of course, like you said, I mean, there's still what we like to call gimmicks, or the draws. I mean, attendance always going to be on the up and up, and is it still as popular as it ever was, or do you see that being a?
Yeah, I guess I kind of came to Chicago in the middle of their heyday. This decade where it's 500 sellout crowds in a row they had until this pandemic came.
Oh wow.
So hockey's still big here, and it was always like it was a Bears town, but the Bears have been bad for so long, and the Blackhawks took off, so it became a Hawks town, and it's obviously the Cubs too, but the Bulls have been taking a backseat, so there's obviously some good draws, but the Hawks are definitely right there at the top. Like, I'd say it's probably
so awesome.
Hawks and Cubs probably.
Nice.
It's amazing, all those different franchises, and like that's all Bulls, Bears, Hawks, Cubs. That's all legendary stuff right there. It's crazy.
And still got the White Sox in there taking.
And the White Sox, yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So it's a lot going on.
That's amazing. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, buddy. That was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Just one last chance. Any chance you got the ring?
You know what? My wife brought me the ring.
We want to see it.
Yeah.
Of course we want to see it, yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
And can I have it?
We'll trade you for a Toque jersey.
Yeah, exactly.
Brought me a couple toys. She's like, "Oh, you might as well bring the Russian medal too." I went.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. We always forget. Last time I ran into Sheldon when I was doing this a cruise ship from Helsinki to Stockholm overnight with Michael Monroe. Turku, yeah, you're right. It was Turku, yeah. And Sheldon happened to be playing in Finland at the time, so him and his wife Lene just appeared on the boat. I go, "What are you doing here?" But you had just come out of playing in Russia, right?
I was Russia the year before, and then I was in Finland that year, and then I was booking the thing, and then it was like, Todd's playing on this Viking line, and I'm like, well, we're going on a Viking line. Wait a second. Yeah, and here we are.
That's so funny.
It was cool. So here's this. Comes in, they give you this nice, fancy box here with your name, and then it used to light up.
Really?
They'll give you the old.
Whoa.
It's got the cups on there.
Damn. Bling, yo, bling.
Name. And they even hook up the mums, for the mums or the wives. They hook them up with a little pendant too.
Class A organization. Yeah.
It is a top-notch organization. It's got to be one of the best for sure.
That's
so rad, dude.
Like I say, we're taking this to 20th Street in Saskatoon and seeing how much I can get for it.
Well, yeah, if we stay in quarantine much longer, then you're going to have to sell that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a crazy thing. Like, as you know, like as a musician, like, and you know, I always say, like, coming from Lanigan, Saskatchewan, places like Los Angeles and New York just seem like it doesn't seem like something you'll ever see.
No, exactly.
And Tokyo and Moscow, and those are just like fictional places that somebody created. But the fact that you've been able to kind of come from a small town like us and manage to kind of, you know, have a Stanley Cup and live in Chicago, that's so cool that you get to do that.
Yeah, pretty fortunate.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm really, really proud of you. And I can't wait to come crash on your couch and never leave.
Chesterfield.
Yeah. Hey, proud of you too.
Hey!
Wow.
That's John Kearns, my brother, on there.
Yeah, I always did like John better, but anyway.
Yeah, I this whole time I thought I was talking to Wade.
Yeah, wait a second. Wrong guy.
Oh God, just kidding. No, I really thankful you got to come on here, because it's like when we first started talking about who we can talk to, we always initially talk about musicians, but then it's kind of like, you know, it'd be really fun is it's a Canadian-based conversation. I go, well, my cousin plays hockey, and it's kind of like, yeah, everyone's cousin plays hockey.
Yeah.
Mine has a Stanley Cup. Oh, okay. Well, we should talk.
What?
That's really cool.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks for thinking of me and having me on.
No,
guys.
no problem. And just
Fine,
to close out on a couple of things, I just got a text from Fitz. He's out of surgery. Everything went well, so we'll see him back here next Tuesday. We'd
Miss you, Fitz.
We'd of course like to thank our guests. Sheldon, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. John, thanks again. I know you're probably still got your mic on, so you can hear us.
Do you want to mention next week? Can we talk about next week?
Yeah, that's right.
Next week.
Yeah, by all means, go ahead.
Wade Brookbank? Just kidding.
Yeah.
No, next week we have. Actually, I'll let you guys do it because I think you guys did it.
Okay, so my friend, lead guitarist, and original member of Honeymoon Suite, Derry Green,
So crazy.
and Shane.
Jason Hook's going to be here, famous Canadian guitar player.
Awesome.
He's done many great
Fantastic.
things.
Many great.
So
Right now it's Cooper
same
Foot.
bat time, same bat place next week.
Yes. If by that you mean 2 p.m. Pacific Standard
Correct,
Time, then
yes.
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. Everybody always gets confused. Yeah, it's Toque Talk Tuesdays
I know.
at 2 Pacific. So again,
That's
thanks
right.
everybody joining us today, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks.
Bye.
Love you.